And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RTLS chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
145!
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Decollage.
Look at that!
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening/morning. You are taking a live look right now at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where SpaceX is getting ready for another one of their Bandwagon Rideshare missions. So this launch isn't your ordinary Starlink, and while it may not be 26 satellites, it may not be one satellite. We've got about 18 different payloads here, and we'll talk about some of them as we go. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I'll be your host for this broadcast tonight. I am, of course, as always, not alone. I am joined as well on commentary by Alex. How's it going, Alex?
Hello, Sawyer. It looks like we are already casuals here to launches, but today is not your ordinary Falcon 9 launch, I guess, because it's a rideshare mission, right? There's more stuff.
Hey, that's a good line. I should start using that. Not your ordinary something, you know? Also joining us from the field tonight is D-Wise. Hopefully, I'm not sure if D is available for comms at the moment, working on all the camera stuff, but yeah. We have a team out there for you tonight. I believe Jerry is also out there with the drone. We'll see if we get some feeds from him tonight, too. And Carson is the one producing tonight, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and in the background, Kevin Michael Reed trying to make puns, saying we have a bandwagon of satellites. Duh.
All aboard the bandwagon.
Yeah, I'm sure more people will come up with puns as we go along tonight, and I expect to see some of those in chat. Of course, you can always, if you have any questions or puns, tag us at NASA Spaceflight or at NSF in chat, and we will do our best to answer as many of your questions as we can this evening. So, let's start things off here, Alex, with kind of a basic rundown of what exactly a bandwagon mission is and what do we have for Bandwagon-4?
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, SpaceX decided to open up this new program called the Smallsat Rideshare Program. And it started first with the transporter missions, which were dedicated missions where they aggregated small satellites together inside of a payload fairing from a Falcon 9, right? And you've got a rideshare mission, and those transporter missions went to polar orbits. Now, there were transporter missions both from Florida and from Vandenberg, although nowadays it's mostly just from Vandenberg these days, because it's a lot easier to also go into a polar orbit from Vandenberg, whereas here from the Space Coast in Florida, you have to fly around the Florida Peninsula and waste a little bit of performance from the rocket. Now, Bandwagon started about a year ago, over a year ago, actually, and it's about some of the other low Earth orbits that some of these satellites sometimes go to, right? We are often seeing things like Earth observation satellites, spy satellites are also in that category, right? They usually go to polar orbit. They like polar orbits because there's this special orbit called sun-synchronous orbit, right? Where your angle between the sun and the ground is always the same, right? And it's a very oversimplification of that, but essentially it means that if you have, for example, an optical Earth observation satellite and you want to spy on some country, right, you're always seeing that on the same illumination every single day, right, which makes it a lot easier to do differentiation between one day and the other, or between 1 week and the other, right? But sometimes your observation systems don't need that sort of stuff, and therefore you may want to go to other orbits, which might be a lot more interesting. And so Bandwagon is going to that kind of orbit, which is mid-inclination. Mid-inclination literally means what it means, and it is 45 degrees. So today's mission, for example, is going to 45.4 degrees. There's that little 0.4 there, but it's still mid-inclination, between 0 and 90. What's in between? 45. So today's mission is going to that orbit. For that purpose, to get to that orbit, they're going to be heading southeast out of the Cape, and they're going to be essentially sort of going north of the Bahamas to achieve that orbit. On board Falcon 9, there are 18 different payloads, which may or may not be talked about today, because there's one in particular that's sort of probably the reason why Bandwagon was started in the first place. We'll talk about that later. But there are also other interesting payloads as well going on board. And yeah, there's a lot of things to be talked about, of course, but that's essentially where we are right now. It's this sort of mid-inclination orbit. 18 different payloads going into that orbit, and hopefully we're going to get a nice RTLS, a return to launch site landing of that booster that you see there on the pad.
Yeah, so you can see Carson highlighting some of those companies. And yeah, that one particular one, I think SpaceX kind of add it to the Bandwagon-4 missions for that particular SAR constellation. We'll get more into that later. I definitely want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, I said yeah.
Oh, yeah. So in case you're wondering for the launch window tonight, this is a fun one, folks. The launch window, the current T0 is 1:09 a.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. The window runs until 1:03 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yes, in case you're wondering, the clocks do turn back tonight in the United States and North America here. For those parts of the continent that do observe it. So yeah, basically the window runs from right now T0 is at 1:09 and it can run technically till 1:03, but it's 56 minutes window. So that's not confusing at all. I know our team was working earlier today to try and get the T0 clock to behave if it did go into that end of the window time in the event that it doesn't roll over. In terms of landing for this one, Alex, this is fun. We have a return to launch site landing for this booster, and Isabel Inc. asking, is this the last booster recovery for LZ2?
Well, I guess I should probably mention which booster it is, because this is also a really special booster. This is B1091, and as we've sort of talked about in its previous two missions, that you can see it supported Kuiper-Falcon 2 and Kuiper-Falcon 3, those two missions dedicated to launching Amazon's Kuiper satellites. So in each one of them, it launched 24 of them. So total satellites launched so far, 48. After this, it'll probably be more, of course, up to 66. But the interesting thing is that this booster in particular is a center core, a Falcon Heavy center core dressed as a Falcon 9 booster. And also, interestingly, you can see there the turnaround, it's under 20 days. So that is really, really nice. It's not the shortest turnaround. That's a title for B1088 on the West Coast, which had a turnaround time of barely 14 days, essentially 2 weeks. But yeah, so this booster, because it's just small satellites on board. There are 18 payloads, but they're all very tiny. There's maybe like, there's even 4 of them that are literally smaller than a hand. Like, there are 4 of them that are really, really tiny, in fact. So there are 18 payloads, but overall, the payload mass, the total mass that this is carrying into orbit is like maybe 3 or 4 metric tons. So it's got plenty of performance to be able to return back to the landing zone at the Cape, and that'll be at landing zone 2, because if people are keeping track, landing zone 1 is now retired, right? SpaceX is moving away from LC1 and LC2. They're using LC2 in the meantime, as they sort of retreat, if you will, from that area. In the meantime, they're also building a second sort of like a future landing pad there at Slick 40 essentially, where those 4 towers are, the 2 on the left, that's more or less where one of those is located. So whenever we see RTLSs in the future, we're going to see not only the launch from this view, but also the landing. As to the question in particular, because this was the setup, now I'm going to answer the actual question, which is, right, so they're moving away from LC1 and LC2. It is true that we don't know of any other mission coming up in the next couple of months because the lease ends at the end of the year, December 31st, right? So in the next couple of months, do they have any other RTLS missions? That's sort of the question. Right now, we're not aware of any other mission other than this one that is RTLS that has an return to launch site. Oh, thank you for that, Carson. This is from our latest flyover. You can see there the landing pad being put together out there at Slick 40. But that's sort of the question here. It might very well be the last landing at LC2 because we look at the schedules. It's like, okay, let's go to next space flight, and then this one, right? You scroll through all of the upcoming launches, and there doesn't seem to be any upcoming launch until at least like Q1 2026. That's probably going to be on RTLS. And so it may very well be the last landing at LC2, the 15th and last landing.
So could this be a case then where there are missions that would normally be an RTLS that in that time being in the beginning of January, they could say, oh, maybe we'll just do this one as a drone ship landing instead?
Given how much they use the drone ships for Starlinks, for example, or other customer missions. I mean, we had recently a GTO mission, right? And it was not SpaceX, but there was another recent one. I think it was Nusantara Lima, and that was drone ship, for example, right? So you have most of the missions using drone ships are now Starlinks, and they probably don't want themselves to delay those. So they're probably just gonna get done with that. I mean, it's a circle on the ground, right? With that landing pad at Slick 40. So we'll see. We will see what happens, but yeah, it's probably not something that we're gonna see until at least February or March of next year, based on the schedules.
Yeah, and make sure you keep an eye out if you haven't seen that latest KSC flyover, just to see how far the progress is on it. Again, you can see the circle. You can see the landing zone circle there already, which is pretty cool. So we'll be continuing to follow that for sure. But yeah, this may be a farewell to LZ2. Hey, look at that. It's the part of the video where we circle the circle. Yeah. It's from that KSC flyover.
It's
me.
Alex.
It's orange. No, it's Alex. Oh, boy. But yes, so that is for tonight. We will hope not see Slick 40 landing yet. And then, of course, the big question will also be, when do we see landings at 39A? Because that's when we could potentially go back to those LZ1 and 2 landings.
Yeah. In August, they got approved. So around late August, they got approved the landing zone at Slick 40. And as soon as they got approved that, they started just clearing the area and building the landing zone. That was really cool how quickly they moved all of their assets and everything. But we have no idea about LC-39A because I think in part of the official paperwork, it said that it was being handled by NASA. So it's not being handled by the FAA, for example, doing their own paperwork. So it's a little bit more secretive. I don't want to say secretive, though, but I just said it. So what other word? Less open. How about that?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's just that it's more of an internal process, right? When they do it with the FAA, it's a bit more public. There are public comments, blah blah. Usually, when it's NASA side of things, it's a little bit different, and it makes sense that it is NASA side because it's 39A, that's Kennedy Space Center, that is handled by NASA, whereas here at Slick 40, that is Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, that is the Space Force. And so in that case, for example, the Space Force went to the FAA and they sort of, came together, both of them, and were like, okay, we'll do this, we'll do that. And so that part of the paperwork was sort of handled by the Space Force for the FAA. So I have no idea what is going on with 39A, and that's part of the a little bit of the discussion in the flyover video precisely talks about, we don't know what is going on, why they don't have the landing pads there, but they probably have a lot of stuff on their plate because Starship at 39A, man, it's a big thing. literally.
Oh yeah, it's a large area. Although 39A is an extremely large launch pad, it's deceivingly big because
Yeah.
we're so used to just seeing the fixed service structure and the ramp going up to it and the Starship Tower next to it, ignoring the entire other side of it up towards the north. There is a lot more area at 39A that's just not used.
Yeah, some of the again, there's paperwork. It's not that we don't know about this. There's paperwork, but the very little paperwork that there is, it's like just some water management system stuff, and it said that the landing zones will be located to the north of the current perimeter of 39A. So it's gonna have like a little bump at the top on the map if you were to look at the map, right? But we don't really know when that's gonna happen. And again, they're very busy right now with Starship. In fact, we've seen recent days that they have prepared the big LR13000 crane with a big what's it called, the lifting jig that they use, right, to be able to then in some of, I don't know how long it'll take, but in a few days probably we'll get the rollout of the launch mount for Starship and also be placed there. So they are very busy right now. There we go. See the lifting rig there, and they still have a launch plan for next week, which is really intriguing to me because they have a Starlink launch and then another Starlink launch about a week after. So that's gonna be interesting.
It really is. Again, we were talking last launch, and I think in one of the recent flame trenches, well, there haven't been that many launches from 39A recently, and now, as we're expecting them to slow down, they're starting back up again. And there is a look from Google Maps. Again, basically, you can cut the pad in half. You have an entire Starship tower, room for the launch mount. You have the fixed service structure, and then that entire left side that's just not used. And keep in mind how big that Starship Tower and that area is. And look how small it looks in comparison to the rest of the perimeter of 39A. Unless you've driven around it, it can be deceiving how large that is. So yeah, exciting when we do eventually get landing zones in or near there too.
Yep.
Also exciting is the amazing support that we've already been getting before the stream even started. John Kirker becoming a Red Team member. This person becoming a PadRat member. I apologize, I don't know Cyrillic. John Churchill, thank you for upgrading to PadRat. Some cool clips, becoming a Capcom member. Reminder, Capcom and above gets access to the NSF Discord with all the fun that goes on in there, all the different space topics, sports ball, which, much to my chagrin, congratulations to Dodgers fans, and food as well. And if you go even above, say, to Launch Director or the highest level of support like GRX70 did, Flight Engineer, you also get your name at the end of NSF Lives as well as the Flame Trench, which, holy smokes, thank you for upgrading to Flight Engineer. We really appreciate that. And if there is ever an NSF parking lot built, I'll make sure there's a spot with your name on it too. Yes, and apparently I'm being told, as happened the other night, sometimes NSF team members can play Catan for and
Oh
with
my goodness.
Membies. Alex?
Hey, look. Okay, so I'm gonna spill the beans here. We were playing Catan, and D thinks that they are, the absolute winner of all of the games. I won the game in that case in front of the Membies. Just saying.
Yeah. Sure, rubbing it in. Yes, I saw the screenshot posted somewhere in the members' Discord of the winning slide, and there was Alex at the top. Oh, the sass going on in the back channel right now is kind of entertaining.
Kmar also posting in chat that he also won against D.
Yeah. Poor D. D working on getting all the cameras and everything set up for us right now, unable to respond on comms, and all of this coming at them. But coming at you in about, hopefully, 5 or so minutes will be the start of propellant load. As we go down the timeline here, we should hopefully get that go for prop load in about 2 minutes. Of course, we don't actually get to hear that. They do that electronically, internally, with some buttons they have at their stations. And if all is go, at T-minus 35 minutes, they will start loading propellant. That includes the RP-1, Rocket Propellant 1, the kerosene for Stage 1, along with the liquid oxygen, or LOX, for Stage 1. Meanwhile, Stage 2 just begins with the RP-1. That continues until 20 minutes, 20 seconds when we get the best vent, so to speak, and they start chilling down before loading liquid oxygen onto stage 2 at T-minus 16 minutes. So hopefully all of that still to come soon. TM. Let's see here. In terms of this particular launch pad, of course, we know that we may be seeing the end of LZ2, but we're also looking right ahead. There's that giant, crew access tower there still. Josh King wondering, when's the next crew launch from Slick 40? I mean, the next crew launch in general, I believe, Alex, is Crew 12, early of Q1 next year, right?
Yeah, so that should be I think they originally planned to have it in April or something like that, but we'll see where it sort of lands on the schedule, because I have no idea what sort of plans they have. They've got a bit of a chaos there with scheduling on the ISS. I don't know if you've seen recently the whole deal with Soyuz and everything. It's a bit more drama, but space flight without drama, that would be very boring. So yeah, the next Dragon flight, of course, it should be Crew 12, hopefully Q1, maybe beginning of Q2 of 2026. And that should be hopefully maybe from 40. We'll see, because they've got also potentially another Falcon Heavy around that time as well from 39A, which we'll see shortly, maybe. And so this is one of those things that it's like we have no idea usually, because it comes down to whether 39A can be used or not, right? And so if it can be used, then they'll probably just choose to use 39A. But if it can't, then they'll go to 40, which is why, for example, Crew 9 last year, it used Pad 40, because Europa Clipper on a Falcon Heavy was being used, was essentially being prepared for launch from 39A, and it was like within a week, one launch to the other, right? And so it will have conflicted major time in between, and so it would not have enough time, and that's why they did it from 40. So we'll see when the next one is, but maybe next year we'll definitely have something. I'm looking forward, for example, as well, because it's related to this launch, whenever we have Dragon missions to the Vest station, Vest 1, right? And that's the first crew mission to Haven 1. And so that is going to be really interesting. And the reason why it's connected to this is because one of the payloads on board is a demonstration satellite for that future station. It's going to be testing some of the components from propulsion, guidance, software, and many more things that will be sort of launched on Haven 1. And as you can see there, following that launch, they'll launch Vast, the first crew, Vast 1, the first crew to Haven 1. So yeah.
Which is amazing that about a year ago, we went and got a tour there at Vast, and they already, since that time, have completed their launch control, or their mission control center out there in Long Beach, California. And now, again, we have the demo for Haven aboard this, the Haven 1. I want to make sure I get the name right on the particular payload for Vast, the Haven demo build for this. Which, while we have a moment, we can probably talk about some of the other things on board. And I know we were hinting at it earlier, but obviously one of the big ones is sort of the cake topper, the one that's become sort of standard for these bandwagon missions, and that is for Korea's military, South Korea.
Yeah, you say cake topper, but it's actually the word that they use, right? The expression that they use for the satellite that is on top of the stack. They have these sort of, it almost looks like a Christmas tree of satellites, right? And the one at the top, the one that has the top position, is usually the largest, but it's also called the cake topper position. So indeed, and so every single bandwagon mission so far has launched that one, because there are 5 of those. There was a separate dedicated mission to that, plus other payloads. And to the first of these, it's the Project 425 from South Korea, and it's essentially a constellation of military spy satellites, to put it in a very simple way. And 4 of them are radar satellites. They are synthetic aperture radar satellites. They have this radar system that can sort of go and scan through clouds in all kinds of conditions, right? Which is why it can be launched into this sort of mid-inclination orbit, because 45 degrees, well, it's not sun-synchronous orbit. It's not this special illumination condition and whatever, right? But it gets you more often through north and south, for example, because it's 45 degrees. And so you've got a little bit more of what it's called revisit time. And so you've put 4 of those in this kind of orbit, and that's how you get this sort of, much more often pictures or imaging, if you will. It's technically not imaging, but yeah. And so this kind of satellites is essentially part of South Korea's own sort of military constellation.
Exactly. So we have that one, and then another one that I was reading up on earlier, and I know we've gotten press releases from them that was interesting. Is there's another company called StarCloud, and one of the things that they're looking at is data centers in space. So the idea of, could you run a cloud from, well, above the cloud, I guess. So on this particular mission, they'll be testing an NVIDIA H100 GPU in space to see if that is something that is indeed possible. So that's pretty cool, as we also see pretty cool here that we are 35 minutes until Falcon 9's launch of the Bandwagon-4 mission from Florida. All systems are looking good, and weather is favorable for liftoff. Beautiful. And that's something we also haven't talked about yet, is the weather. And thankfully, here in Florida, it is a beautiful evening tonight, and the weather forecast matches just how beautiful it is, with a 95% chance of favorable conditions for launch tonight. The only concern being the cumulus cloud rule, of which there's always the chance of scattered clouds, especially this time of year still in Florida. And in terms of everything else, upper level wind shear is low, solar activity is low. And when we talk about booster recovery weather, again, we are not talking about drone ship weather. We are talking about weather over at landing zone 2. And that is an RTLS landing. And that is also low in terms of risk criteria. So that is what we like to see. Let's see here, as we also look to see, we should be coming up approximately on that time when we begin seeing frost at the base of Falcon 9. So at this point, we are on frost watch here at NSF. My wrist doesn't have a watch, but at least we have frost watch here. Sorry, that was terrible. Anyway, interesting question also from... where was it? I saw it earlier asking, here we go, Honey asking, do you think the lower temperatures will affect the frost on the booster? And I'm not sure how much it'll affect if we see the frost, just because the propellants that are low to Alex are that ridiculously cold regardless, right?
Well, yeah, the low temperatures, the liquid oxygen is even colder, essentially, right? It doesn't matter, like, even if you went to Antarctica or something like that in the middle of the southern winter, right? It will still be much, much hotter than liquid oxygen, because essentially anywhere on Earth that it's cold, that you can think it's cold, it's going to be a lot hotter than the liquid oxygen. So the lower temperatures affect not the frost or even the propellant itself. It's just other things, right? Like valves that are not directly in contact, for example, with a liquid oxygen. Maybe for kerosene, the kerosene itself might be affected as well by cold temperatures, which is in part why, for example, older Soyuz and other kinds of old Soviet rockets, for example, at one point they started using a different mix of kerosene and things like that. But yeah, so essentially it's other components that are going to be affected. The frost itself, I mean, colder temperatures usually mean that there's going to be less humidity, unless you are in Florida, which it's always humid. So for the frost, I don't think it'll be that much of an effect.
Yeah, exactly. Even so, in terms of temperatures, lately it's been about the high 60s Fahrenheit. That's about 20, 21 degrees Celsius out there. So it's not absolutely horrible cold, but for Florida, I'm sure some of our team out there would indeed be wearing jackets. Max, we love you, Max. Anyway, yeah, but just for reference, liquid oxygen has a boiling point of about minus 300 Fahrenheit or minus 183 Celsius. So yeah, 60 versus minus 297. We should be seeing frost on there.
Yeah, I think I can see some condensation already.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, I think we have the frost going. And I believe we can just get a really quick weather check here from our eyes in the field. DYs, first off, good evening. Second off, any chance we can get you just for a quick weather check while we have you for a moment? All right, we'll check back in another time. But right now, everything seems good. Anyway, continuing on here. Killas is asking, why aren't all Falcon 9 launches RTLS, Alex? Wouldn't it save money not using drone ships? Although I guess it becomes the balance of money you would save in drone ships versus amount of payload you can get into orbit.
Yeah, that is exactly the case, right? Sometimes your mission, it's a lot better to use as much performance of the rocket as you can to be able to launch the payload. For example, on this mission, you have plenty of performance. There's so much plenty of margins, right? That you can have the booster coming back to land. But for example, on a Starlink mission, the opposite is what you want. You want to actually fully get that fairing that fairing volume completely full of satellites. Now there's a trade-off though, because having the drone ship out there, you have to return it back, and so there's a turnaround time that of just linked to that trip of the drone ship itself. And so there's a trade-off there where it's like you could probably offload some of those Starlink satellites, for example, and do an RTLS or return to launch site landing. But then how fast do you have to turn around then the launch pad, right? And how fast do you have to have that cadence in order to compensate having to carry fewer satellites? And then there are other missions where you just cannot do that at all. Like you just cannot sacrifice the performance because your satellite will just not get to where it needs to go. Like, for example, GTO missions, interplanetary missions, lunar missions, etc., which we've seen many times with Falcon 9. There are other times that even landing on the drone ship doesn't allow you to get the payload into the orbit that it needs, and so you have to expend the booster. We saw that recently with the Spainsat NG2 satellite, and last year we saw that with Europa Clipper and Falcon Heavy expending all of its boosters, right? The 3 boosters were expended. So that is essentially what drives the reason for having a lot more drone ship landings than RTLSs. But there are some times that you can do a land landing, and so that's why they have that opportunity.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, we love when we get to see it too. It makes for a great show along the Space Coast, and especially once you get stage separation and booster back burn, and we get the Falcon Nebula, which we should be able to see tonight if the skies are clear. DUIs, how are the skies looking tonight?
The skies are brilliantly clear tonight. We have stars all over the place. I can see the reflections of stars even on the water here at the press site. It's quite stunning. And there you go with Jerry's drone view from the port area. You can see it is just a very clear night. And that's noted also in the weather forecasts, which the only concern, which led to a 5% probability of violation, is the cumulus cloud rule. I think if I turn around, I can see one cloud in the sky in the far distance, but it is a brilliant night for a launch, and I'm really looking forward to this RTLS.
Oh, yes, all of us are indeed, with everything continuing to count down to that launch in about 25 and a half minutes, and that landing about 8 minutes or so after that. And again, a beautiful night there, as you saw from Jerry operating the drone out there. Of course, the drone being operated by a licensed drone pilot in an area where we are indeed allowed to operate a drone. We follow all flight restrictions. Just want to make that clear. Also, we have a goal that I forgot to mention going on in chat, that if we meet the goal, the launch will happen in the 1 a.m. window, which, I mean, I would hope so, because even though the window technically would go until 2:03 a.m., the clocks change at 1:59:59. So if it launches in this window, it will launch within the 1 a.m. window. So we'll see if we can make that happen tonight. I think it's doable. But yeah, I saw someone asking when the exact change goes over from daylight saving to standard. It is 1:59:59, and then the clocks go back to 1 a.m., and that's when they become standard time. Vaquero asking, Alex, will we see a stubby nozzle tonight on stage 2?
Well, main question for me is whether we'll see the second stage or not, because because
Yeah.
of that South Korean spy satellite. But we may still have the shot. Maybe we'll see from the intrastage, right? Which then will allow us to see whether the MVAC engine is a stubby nozzle or not. My guess is that for this one in particular, it might be a full nozzle. And the reason for that is because this second stage will be performing 3 different burns. So maybe it needs the full performance. I'm not too sure, because sometimes even when they have technically all the payload available, like the payload mass is not that huge, and they have plenty of margins, they still put the full nozzle. At least in some of the recent rideshare missions, for example, from transporter missions, they've done that. So I don't know if that'll be the case. Probably no stubby, and I'd be very, very happy if it weren't stubby.
Same, as we get a really cool view of the frost going up the base right now of Falcon 9. We can see that frost is climbing, thankfully. The other thing to note, as you pointed out, there are 2 engine relights in addition. So 3 Seacos. And the last 2 burns are 1 second each, approximately. So it's not like we're talking long, 20, 30 minute long burns in between. We're literally talking a second each.
Yeah, the first burn of the second stage will obviously, the 2 stages will separate, and then the first burn will put the second stage into a roughly 570 by 573 kilometer orbit. So it's gonna go up there directly. This launch will be very lofty for that second stage. It's gonna go directly to 570 kilometers and then deploy the South Korean spy satellite. Then it's gonna do 2 burns. One to lower so both are going to be lower in the orbit. One the perigee, then the other the apogee, highest point, lowest point in the orbit. And so it's going to go from roughly 570 kilometers in altitude to 510 kilometers. If you do the math, that's not a lot of change, right? For such an orbit, it's like 60 kilometers or so in altitude. And for a engine so big as the MVAC engine, that's nothing. That's why those 2 burns are like 1 second. Blink and you miss, right? So yeah, and once it lowers its orbit to 510, then it's going to deploy all of the other satellites, the Haven demonstration, Star Cloud, etc., etc.
Yeah, it's a very interesting deploy system for this one. And yes, Korea's SAR spy satellite thing gets its own deployment, and then everything else comes after. And I mean, as we pointed out there, that is the first deploy, so it is very unlikely that they will share any video of the payload deploys, especially at that point, given that it is meant to be a more secretive satellite, despite the fact that the 17 others, for the most part, are more public knowledge or publicly available, not afraid to hide what their system looks like, so to speak. But yeah, there's it's a lot of satellites still to deploy. But of course, that's the main one on top.
The cake topper.
Yeah. Well, when I was reading up on it earlier tonight, and I was like, wait a minute, cake topper, that's the real name for it.
The funny thing is, the other connectors, the other places where the other satellites go, they are called plates. So you've got the cake topper and the plates to eat the cake. I don't know, whatever.
Well, now you need some frosting, or at least frost as we come up on 20 minutes and 20 seconds. And indeed, there is the vent that we're used to seeing at 20 minutes and 20 seconds as they start chilling down the LOX lines. Alex, why do we see this?
Yeah, so they are preparing for that second stage liquid oxygen load in about 3 minutes and a half from now. So we're going to see that vent disappear when that happens, and that'll be the start of liquid oxygen load. What we're seeing right now is just gaseous oxygen leaving the Stromback, the sort of surface structure that sort of supports the rocket when it is horizontal and then when it's going vertical, but it also has multiple connections to the intrastage on the first stage, to the second stage, and also to the payload fairing as well. And that in particular is to chill down the line that sort of supplies liquid oxygen to the second stage because it's very, very cold. And as we said, anywhere on Earth right now, wherever you are on Earth, it's going to be hotter than that liquid oxygen. And so if you wanted to flow liquid oxygen through that line, you need to condition that. So yeah, that's pretty much why we're seeing that.
And that will continue until about the 16-minute mark, and that will indicate that they are loading liquid oxygen onto stage 2. Meanwhile, propellant load continues on both stage 1 and stage 2 right now. Or excuse me, on stage 1 of both the liquid oxygen and the RP1 right now. Also, someone saying that that sounds like a band name, Cake Topper and the Blights. Kind of like it. Also, it worked out perfectly with the frosting going into that in the frost. I was proud of that. Also proud of Amy Harrell coming in here with a $10 super chat, aiming towards the goal of launching within this window, of which we totally have control over with the support. But no, genuinely appreciate that. Thank you so much. Here's a good question, and I'll take this one actually. Tiger Pilot asking, are there road closures there, or is everything far enough away? The ships seem pretty close. In terms of road closures, I mean, there are areas where people are not allowed to drive at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station that are too close, but there are roads that are a little over a mile away that sometimes you will still see cars driving by right before launch on site. They've gotten pretty good at the safety zones of these. So in terms of publicly accessible roads, there are none in the area that anyone can really drive around. So in terms of public viewing for driving, it's not an issue. In regards to boats, there is still keep out zones in the water, especially with this being a southeasterly launch. But yeah, if there are boats to the north, it's not so much an issue. And you just got to hope that cruise ships don't pull something that may or may not have happened before, where they go into the exclusion zone and, end a launch attempt seconds before it was supposed to go. Not that that's happened. Which, in case you're wondering, when we show the trajectory maps like this, that is actually the keep out zones and the hazard warning areas. So you can kind of see that area of where the boats and everyone need to stay away from, still north of where the actual inlet is for the port. And then the downrange one, it seems strange because this is an RTLS mission for those just joining, returns to launch site. So there is no drone ship, but there is still marine traffic out there that is important for this mission, right?
Yeah, so obviously, there's always the off chance that the boost back burn may fail, right? That the booster will not have a pleasant upright travel, I guess, trip, and then it may fail on the boost back burn, for example. And then, well, that's where it will fall, right? But then you also have the fairing halves. And so the fairing halves are also going to be splashing down there. They're going to be recovered by a fairing recovery vessel. I think for this one is Bob. So we're going to have that out there. And of course, that is very important because they not only recover the booster, but also the fairing halves. And those get to be reused multiple times. We've seen some of these fairing halves going to 34 launches. So it is very, very important for them. And of course, you don't want boats around that area.
No, definitely not. And also there are flight restrictions as well, temporary flight restrictions, TFRs, that go up too, to keep wayward planes out of the area. But yeah, so that's the O-Crud zone as well as the fairing recovery area. Yeah, I'll put it politely there. Anyway, AF, quite appropriately, is the name, Is there a list of interesting payloads on this launch? Because those unaware, the Bandwagon-4 mission is, I saw someone in chat describe it perfectly. It's like a SpaceX Uber in a way. So basically, it's a rideshare where payloads can go on board. And as we mentioned, of course, there's the Korean satellite there that is for their military or their Defense Department, ADD. There's also some other interesting payloads. I know one of them we mentioned briefly, I do want to talk more about, was VAST, who was working on their own space station, and we actually got to tour and see the demo that is flying tonight, right?
Yeah, so they are building this sort of non-permanent station, but it's a space station, right? And there you can see some of the panels. That was when Das and D visited the area many months ago. I think it was at the end of last year, and so they had like panels and everything. But you don't just get to launch a station out of the blue, right? You need to be able to know a little bit what you're going to fly, and this is what Haven Demo is all about. It's got propulsion systems, solar panels you can see. It's also have software. It's got propulsion systems, power systems, and software are usually the most important things that you should probably test ahead of putting it on a station. And so that's what they're doing here on Bandwagon-4. I believe originally it was supposed to be Bandwagon-3 earlier this year, but they had a bit of a delay there. But they're now here. They are now on Bandwagon-4 and launching it there. They have also completed the primary structure of Haven 1, their station. So hopefully in the next few months, they're going to take those learnings from this Haven Demo mission and put it into, outfitting the station with all of the systems that it needs to be able to function. This will also feed, of course, into Haven 2, which is their sort of follow-on station, and it's going to be even larger with more modules, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be super cool to see all of that being developed.
Yeah, I really should have thrown that question in particular. No offense, Alex, to the person that was there and actually saw it. D, we're taking a look at some of the video from that trip that you shot while you were out at VAST in Long Beach.
Yeah, it was a really cool trip. So that's the demo satellite in a pretty early state. You can see that they had like the COPV sort of in the background there that hadn't been like, there's so much stuff they were integrating. It looked like there were star trackers on there, all this sort of stuff that they're trying to get ready for the actual station that will support people. And so we saw the demo satellite, and then we also saw the test structure, which made its way to Mojave afterwards for a bunch of work. And we saw these flight panels, which at this point have been turned into that flight primary structure.
It's amazing to see how far they've come. It's really, really cool. And yeah, if you haven't checked out the video, it's awesome. In terms of other payloads, I was mentioning earlier, there is one that is looking at the potential of cloud storage in space or cloud computing in space. I did see someone saying that would that be called nebula storage instead of cloud storage? With NVIDIA trying their H100 graphics card, the GPU out there, as a data center in space potentially. That's for a company called StarCloud, and they're calling that StarCloud 1. In addition, one of my personal favorites as a amateur radio operator, also known as ham radio, is there will actually be a ham radio satellite that will be on board that is meant for students, actually, and that is being launched for the Czech Republic. That is called Severosat 1. There's a couple of there's an Earth observing satellite called Lemur 2 that is for Spire, and that has an infrared camera on board. And of course, we talked about the synthetic aperture radar satellite for Korea, but there's also one for Finland called ICEYE, and that's 3 satellites, ICEYE 1, 2, and 3, just to name a few. Of course, there's more satellites on there, a bunch of different demos. FGN 100D is on there, Semi 1, 2, and 3, Taurus 1 through 4. It's a lot of little satellites on there, but those are my personal favorites, the ones that we highlighted there. And we are now coming up on about 10 and a half minutes to go. And yeah, as the satellites on board this are some of my favorites. Some of my other favorite stuff, by the way, is the merch that we have at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Just, always be pimping as we joke about here, but it's true, especially as we're already nearing November and December, getting towards the holiday season. Might be a good idea to start stocking up a little early on all the stuff that we have in the shop. Just saying. Of course, we have everything Falcon related, Starship related, you name it, pretty much, we've got it. And if not, you can always let our store team know on socials, which if you're not following on the socials, make sure you do. We even have store team now with their socials with some cool shots and behind the scenes stuff there. Let's see. Continuing along now. Paul asking, I see the boosters return to the port all the time, but where does Bob go after recovery? Well, if you're looking in the port, keep looking. That's where Bob goes.
Yeah. If you look at some of the docks and everything, you eventually get to see some of those. I mean, Bob, Doug as well, and well, maybe in a few days you will not see certain vessels, Sawyer, because there's other recovery vessels right at port which are not from
Yes.
SpaceX, and that is Jacqueline and Harvey Stone. Jacqueline is the drone ship for New Glenn's booster, right? And then Harvey Stone is sort of the support ship for that one. So yeah, in a few days we're probably gonna see those going out for the landing of the second launch of New Glenn. Hopefully, we'll see when that happens.
Yes, that is coming up soon, TM. And of course, you can be ready for the launch, entry, and landing of both vessels. As we were talking about with the merch there, we have the launch, entry, landing for New Glenn, which hopefully we will see on LPV-1, also known as Jacqueline, sometime in the next week, maybe a week from today, hopefully, no earlier than, according to next space flight, but that, of course, could change. And then, of course, the launch, entry, landing for Falcon 9, which we will see with the RTLS in tonight's mission, if all goes well, for this booster B1091, a Falcon 9, or a Falcon Heavy and Falcon 9 close, although not close from shop.nasaspaceflight.com, because this will eventually be a center core booster.
Yep. And I really hope that for this second launch of New Glenn coming up, they have at least a little bit better coverage. I feel like they were struggling. Like we did not see as much onboard views because it felt like they were struggling to get good signal. I'm hopeful that for the next launch, they have better signal, and also it's daylight. Please let it be daylight for that one.
Oh, please. I agree. Please let it be daylight. That would be spectacular. Trent, by the way, coming with the super chat asking, when Christmas 25 sweaters? Oh, I have some inside news to tell you that it is coming very soon. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that. Apparently, that is the wording, is very soon. I'm told Chris Bergen is knitting them as we speak. So be prepared for that. But yeah, I still have mine from, I think it was 2023 Christmas, and they're actually really warm. Which, right now, so are the engines, but they need to chill those down as we hit the 7-minute mark and we reach engine chill down, Alex.
Yeah, so the same deal that I mentioned before for the Stromback and the related plumbing, right? The same thing happens with the engine, right? It has this pump for liquid oxygen that as the name implies, it pumps the liquid oxygen through the engine, right? And so it's gonna get very, very cold at engine ignition, and you don't want that to be cold right at that ignition moment, right? Because when that happens, the flow of liquid oxygen through the engine is very quick. Like it just goes screaming through the pump, and it gets very, very rapidly into the engine. However, if you just open the valves from the tank to the engines, they just flow very slowly because they are not being pumped into the engine. Like the pump is not running, right? So it's not something that you're forcing into the engine. It's just sort of flowing in very calmly and slowly. And that lets the pump being able to get lowered to the operating temperatures. And that is a lot better than just, boom, splashing it with a really cold liquid oxygen right away after being in the Florida weather for many hours and for a long, long time, essentially. So yeah, that's what they're doing right now with the engines. They're flowing a little bit of that liquid oxygen, opening the pre-valves on those engines, and letting some of that liquid oxygen flow through the pumps to be able to get conditioned for ignition.
And we are coming up on a bunch of other milestones as we approach 5 minutes and 20 seconds to go until launch. A reminder, now that the vehicle is almost fully fueled, they are committed to this T0 the moment they started fueling. So it will launch at 1:09 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, or it will not. Those are the two options. There is no push later into the window if needed. But at this point, the next thing will be on your screen there. See those little clamps underneath the payload fairings, the pointy top part of the rocket? Those will open up, and the transporter erector, the strong back that it is right next to it, will lean back 1.8 degrees to get out of the way of the vehicle. That big strong back structure there, in addition to helping transport the vehicle out from the HIF, the horizontal integration facility, actually provides a bunch of lines to the rocket. So that's propellant loading lines, gas lines, data lines, even I call them air conditioning lines, but basically ones that manage the temperature inside the fairings for those satellites. So all of that on that one structure, and we should see that retracting momentarily. From here on out, Alex, what can we expect timeline-wise in terms of fuel loading wrapping up and getting ready for launch?
Yeah, so the strong back retractions should start shortly. There you can see the top clamps opening, and we're going to have stage 1 liquid oxygen load complete in about a minute or so, and a minute after on the second stage as well. That's when we will see the return of that vent from the Stromback. That it's part of this process that they do in the last 2 minutes, where they sort of purge everything that is on those lines in order to save them ahead of liftoff, making sure that they are as inert as possible. And they also depressurize a bunch of the systems, where we're going to have these sort of vents coming out from a little bit further up the Stromback, and depressurizing some of the systems there, which are usually high pressure lines and whatnot. And so, in order to save everything ahead of liftoff, that's what they tend to do. But coming up in a few seconds, that'll be stage 1 liquid oxygen load wrap up, and then a minute later, stage 2.
And of course, we will keep an eye and ear out for those as we see an almost fully frosty rocket out at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where Falcon 9 B1091-3 will hopefully launch 18 satellites on this Bandwagon-4 rideshare mission. Stage 1 LOX load is now complete, and anyone who is in the area around the Space Coast, be prepared for sonic booms incoming about 10 minutes or so from now, as the booster will attempt to land back at Landing Zone 2, just a couple miles down the road at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Looks like we're getting towards the gas closeout portion here. We'll start to see some more of these vents coming back, very similar to the 20-minute, 20-second vent, as things wrap up and they purge the lines. Everything at this point continuing onwards as we approach 2 minutes to go until launch tonight. This one, in case you're wondering, is going towards the southeast. So anybody who is along Florida's east coast, especially if you're towards the south, as you go down towards Indian River, Martin, Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade counties, keep an eye out. You may get to see it. And if you do, send us a picture or a video on any of our social channels. We love to see it. I know I do.
Yeah. And also, another point to add to this is that it's going to be a lofty trajectory. So maybe if you are farther away, you might actually be able to see it because it's going to go higher up in the sky. So just look out for there for that launch if you are in the area.
Never hurts to go out and look, and you can see as you look on your screen as that purge that we were talking about there, closing out all of those gas lines. And now we are about 15 seconds away from Falcon 9 entering startup. That is when the onboard computers will take control of the countdown from that point onward. That is also when they pressurize all of the tanks to flight levels. And so that should be happening right about now, and we should get confirmation a couple of seconds later. Falcon 9 is in startup. Next up should be the go for launch from the launch director, and if so, then they are going to go for tonight's attempt. That should come any second now as well. And we have a go for launch. We are now 30 seconds away from the launch of Bandwagon-4. And of course, we will be quiet and allow you to enjoy the sounds once it does launch. Just a fair warning, we are a couple miles away, so it may take a little while for the sound to reach us, but you will absolutely see and hear Falcon 9 in about 15 seconds. Next up will be the Rainbirds, a water deluge system that will activate in just a couple of seconds. That will be followed by the ignition of the 9 Merlin 1D engines, of which we have ignition and liftoff of Falcon 9 and Bandwagon-4, all aboard the Bandwagon to space. Wonderful sounds and views as we approach 90 seconds into flight. Falcon 9 passing through max Q, maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Everything so far from a visual perspective looking good. When we talk about turning night into day, I think you could see it quite well from that drone view and from our team down in the Cape and the cameras there. So now as Falcon 9 gets into the thinner parts of the atmosphere, that plume will start to expand. And we should have an exciting couple of events coming up in rapid succession, starting with MECO, which will be main engine cutoff, shutdown of those 9 Merlin 1D engines, followed by stage separation. Then the second engine start 1, where the Merlin vacuum engine on stage 2 will ignite, and then we will have a boost back burn on stage 1. So that is where the first stage booster will flip itself all the way around and make its way back towards LZ2, landing zone 2 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. We should be seeing that coming up any second now, and there we go. We have main engine cutoff, and obviously we have ignition of stage 2, and there's the boost back burn. That is, folks, what we like to call a Falcon Nebula, where the plumes interact with each other. Stage 2 continuing on its way into orbit. Stage 1, oh, look at that, turning itself around to head back towards Cape Canaveral Space Force Station for a landing.
That was so cool.
Is there any better explanation for that phenomenon, Alex?
It's just the two of the exhaust, the one from the MVAC engine and the 3 engines on the first stage while it's doing its boost back burn. They have this sort of interaction between each other. Look at that. Wow.
Oh, that view never gets old. I hope some people got some photos of that they can send to us on the socials as we keep tracking this now. 3.5 minutes into flight. Everything looking good. Now, as you pointed out, this one's going to be going up quite high for stage 2. So we should be seeing quite a high altitude on this one, right? What is the parking orbit for this to start?
Yeah, the first orbit after stage 2 shuts down its engine, that's going to be 570 kilometers in altitude. So it's heading out all the way there in one single burn. So it's a very, there you can see the map. I mean, look at that. It's going way up. The booster has just reached apogee, its highest point in its orbit, and it's 133. We're used to Starlink missions where it's closer to like 114. So it's gone a little bit higher, but now the second stage is even going higher. Unfortunately, second stage is not going to be covered by SpaceX because of the whole thing of like, there's a military satellite by South Korea. So yeah, they're not going to be covered that. So the telemetry down there is just for stage 1.
Yep, and we should be coming up on apogee, and in fact, we just passed apogee, I believe, for stage 1. That is the highest point in the trajectory for stage 1. That will now be coming back down. And again, although it is not landing on the drone ship, it still has a very similar entry and landing pattern. It's still, we expect at least, to be a 3-engine followed by 1 engine, right?
Yeah, sometimes they switch around and the entry burn is 1 engine and then the landing burn is 131, right? But we'll see. We'll see what they do with this one.
That is fun. It is fun to watch. And of course, we are now 5 minutes into flight. So those that are in the area around Cape Canaveral, get ready as the booster comes back soon.
Also, it did look like it was not a stubby nozzle. I'm going a little bit back and checking it out. It was not stubby. So yay!
Yeah. Yes, the full-size Merlin vacuum engine. And a reminder, this is the first of 3 burns tonight for that engine on stage 2. And
Oh,
as
here we
look
go.
now on stage 1, you can see the lights of Florida through the grid fin on the right side of the screen there. Oh, that is such a cool view. I'll make sure to go outside and wave real quick so you see if you can see me.
But yeah, that's the view of the Florida coast. Coming up on that entry burn shortly.
So far, everything looking good with the data that we're seeing. 60 kilometers in altitude, and that speed, while it's picking up now, is about to slow down as
Ooh.
we have visual of that entry burn fighting fire with fire to slow itself down as
Is
it re-enters.
Is that from our robot cameras? Ooh, that's
Yes,
closer.
that appears to be a DY's camera track there.
But yeah, stay tuned for those sonic booms.
Yep, and there's that replay of that, because again, the SpaceX feed is slightly behind our actual cameras because of their latency. So we try and provide as low latency as possible for you.
Yep, looks like the entry burn was 131 as usual. So landing burn will probably be just a single engine.
There we go, and you can kind of see the lights of Cape Canaveral getting closer. Disney off in the distance. 3 Gs, the booster is currently pulling 10 kilometers up and still 1,500 kilometers an hour, but slowing rapidly. So as pointed out, next will be the landing burn. We will see those grid fins help steer it down in addition to that single engine. But Cape will hear some sonic booms, and we will hopefully see what might be the final landing at LZ2. And there we go. We can see it going right from our Cape Cam. This from a drone view of it coming down. As it goes behind the tree line. Boy, is it bright tonight, but that is a booster back at LZ2. This the onboard view a couple seconds later. Again, that might be the final time we see a Falcon 9 booster land in either LZ1 or LZ2.
Sonic booms.
There you go, and a couple of VAB squeals along with it too. Love that delayed sound there still.
Wow, the rumble.
That was a long rumble. Wow, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
That was something tonight, folks. That was absolutely beautiful. Of course, we will have replays coming up for you in just a bit. But I do need to really quickly thank MidCon before the launch with a $20 super chat. They did have a technical question as we work on these replays here. I guess we can answer it. For Vulcan or Raptor, are the vacuum versions of these engines interchangeable with the non-vacuum?
Vulcan meaning B4?
I guess BE4 or Raptor.
Well, B4 doesn't have a vacuum version, but Raptor, no, it cannot be interchanged with sea levels. No.
Yeah, as cool as that would be. Also cool was the gift train that was going on right at launch too. Flipper79 gifting a Red Team membership. Nibbles then gifting a Red Team membership. Moldy Space then gifting a Red Team membership. And then RC Horseman gifting 5 red team memberships.
And by the way, the reason we're seeing still that map is because second stage has not reached yet its orbit.
That is wild.
Because it's going so far up that it's, it takes a while for it to reach that orbit, but it's getting there. Should be very, very close. They just call out terminal guidance, which is very close to the end.
Should be a couple seconds away from that shutdown now at about 9 minutes, 40 seconds-ish into flight.
Oh, there we go. Look at that.
Yep, we
now
can
the
see
orbit.
the trajectory there. There's the orbit.
There we go.
And so far, that looks good. Of course, the first payload deployment being the super secretive one for
And nominal
Korea.
orbital insertion as well. So, yay.
That's what we want to hear. So yes, that secretive kind of defense satellite for Korea will deploy in about 2-ish minutes from now. And then it will coast for a while, do 2 more 1-second burns before starting the deploy sequence for everything else on board. Once they do start the second set of deployments, 1 hour and 10 minutes into flight, it's about 3.5 to 4 minutes for all of them to be released. So all things considered, a very quick mission that an hour, 13 minutes in, it will have hopefully deployed 18 different satellites. That is unbelievable. Again, those replays are in the works, folks, so stick around. There are some beautiful ones coming. You saw just how orange it looked tonight. The sky is spectacular. And Lords of Random coming in with another gifted Red Team membership. Thank you very much for that. Now, I mentioned, Alex, we talked about this beforehand, but for people who are still sticking around wondering why might this be the final landing at LZ2?
Yeah, SpaceX's lease of that area actually already expired in July, but they have a partnership with the ones that are coming in soon, which are Via Space and Phantom Space, where they can still use the landing zone, at least landing zone 2, in the meantime, while they're building their own landing zone for, right directly at Slick 40, at Space Launch Complex 40, and also at Launch Complex 39A. So right now they're already in that process of building the new landing zone at Space Launch Complex 40. But the reason we say this might be the last one is because there's no upcoming mission in between now and the end of the year, which is sort of where they had sort of that partnership to keep landing at landing zone 2. And so there's really no mission that we know of that might be between now and December that also needs an RTLS, or that could RTLS, right? That could return to the launch site. And so right now, it seems by all means that this is going to be the last one on LC2 unless there's some kind of surprise mission coming up.
Yeah, which, again, possible, but not expecting. And LZ1 was completely handed over, by the way, following the landing of Crew 10 earlier this year. So that's why no LZ1 either. And someone asked, what do we mean by the VAB squeal? Well, it's hard to explain until you hear it. But if you go back into the replay, you can definitely hear it. So basically, either for launches from LZ40 or Slick 40, or landings from LZ1 and 2, the sound vibrates off the panels of the vehicle assembly building, and the resonance from those engines on Falcon 9 somehow match up with the panels on the VAB, and it lets out a sort of squealing sound, almost like a ghostly sound that comes off of the panels that vibrates back and our microphones pick up. So if you listen back to the landing, I apologize for talking over some of the sonic booms there. You'll hear the booms, and then you'll also hear like a squeal, squeal, squeal. If you rewind it and listen, you might be able to hear it. That is that vibration from those panels, and we call that the VAB squeal.
Yeah, it's a very, the one at launch is very high pitch, and it's like beep, 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 right? Mm-hmm. And then for the sonic boom, it's sort of like the reflection, and it sounds more like laser guns, right? It's like pew pew, because the sonic boom is boom boom boom, right? But there's like 2 of them that it's very close to each other, so it's technically, at the distance of the VAB. By the time that it reaches there, it's sort of heard more like boom boom, right? So the reflection back from those doors on the VAB, it sounds more like pew pew, and it
Ninja
literally
Decimator?
sounds like that. Yeah, like Ninja Decimator.
Pew pew pew. Yeah. Someone pointed out, it does sound like one of those whistling firecrackers. That's a good way to put it also. So
Yeah, true.
if you haven't heard it, go back. Because every time we talk about, you could hear the VAV squeal so clearly, we get tons of comments of people going, I didn't hear anything. There's no way. So many people I know in chat have absolutely never heard the VAV squeal, no matter how many times they watch the launches from 40, how many times we pointed out.
It looks like the Korean satellite has just deployed successfully.
There we go. Of course, we're not seeing any of that given its secrecy, but that is a good sign. And then, let's see. Yes, we need a VAB squeal ringtone. And in terms of the landing, like you said, it seemed like it was a single engine landing. Python asking, why do they use the 131 entry burn pattern instead of just 1 or 3 engines all the way?
Well, the reason they don't do a single engine in the first place is because they need the really big, powerful deceleration. Sometimes the return to launch site landings are slower enough, like they are slow enough that you don't need the full power of the 3 engines. But the whole reason they do 131, which I'm sure that's what the purpose of the question was, like, why do they even light up 1 engine in the first place and no straight to 3 engines? And the whole reason for that is just down to the plumbing and the forces involved. So you may see, for example, on Super Heavy, when it does its landing burn, it lights up 13 engines for the start of the landing burn, but they are not all started right at the same time. It's sort of more like it starts first the 3 in the middle, right, and then the 10 in the sort of in the center ring. It's like 5 and 5. So that sort of pattern, it's down to the plumbing, because there's so many engines there, for example, that you really need to be careful with how you put on all of those Gs on that plumbing, and also how you put all of these very cold fluids right through those pipes and everything. And so a very similar thing happens here, where it's like you light up first one engine, you make sure that everything goes well, and now you light up the other 2. It's a staggered ignition, right? And also for the shutdown, it's a lot easier as well to shut down also in a staggered manner. For example, again, it's very easy for Super Heavy because it's got so many engines, right? So for example, with Super Heavy, when it's doing its hot staging, for example, they shut down 30 of the 33 engines. They do that not all at once, but sort of in a staggered manner, because the forces and the loads, it's much more softer. It's much more of a smooth transition. You may see that, for example, in the G meter when they do those for these missions, like here on Bandwagon-4, you can see that the Gs change more smoothly rather than being boom. Immediately, suddenly, you've got a lot of Gs put on the rocket and the plumbing and everything. That's really, really not ideal.
And yet, somehow it's able to do it and do it multiple times. This booster now earning its Dash 4. Of course, we have one, I believe, that is at a Dash 32 currently, if I'm remembering rightly.
The booster, I think it's 33.
Dash 33. I keep forgetting.
32. Sorry. Yeah, and I keep confusing also the dashes and everything. Yeah. So we have B1067, which flew 31 times already. So that's already up to Dash 32 because it's about to do its 32nd launch, hopefully in a few weeks.
And
replays.
As we say that, let's take a look at some of those replays from tonight's launch. Tonight seemed very, go ahead, like the intro, very orange. No? Not going to do it, Alex? Fine, I'll do it. It's orange. There you go.
You do it.
There, I did it. It's orange. You could see it climbing up through the night there. Look how bright that is. And again, we talk about turning night into day. This is it. This is absolutely it. And those thankfully very thin clouds make for a gorgeous view uphill. There's something about those clouds illuminating too as the rocket flies behind it. It just makes it feel even that much more like an artificial day.
Yeah.
This from our fleet cam atop Rusty's at the port. Great place to grab a bite to eat and to watch launches as well as see all of the boosters when they land on barges come back in, as well as seeing the fairing halves come back in. This from one of the cameras atop our building at the KSC press site. Oh, I love these views. There it is, again, passing behind the clouds. It's also cool seeing the different perspectives from the port side versus seeing it from Kennedy Space Center side. There's totally different angles for all of it, which is really cool. And there it goes out of frame. Just the closer up view from as it rises behind the tree line. It's a little harder to see pad 40 directly from where our building is, so D ends up going out towards closer to the lawn to be able to see it. And of course here, look at this, we can see as we got right at stage separation, this gauge tracking with one of our cameras remotely. This is one of our Cape cams. I love that this one seemed so much more like a ring, like an eye.
Yeah, that's cool.
We've had ones that kind of look more like a butterfly. This one looks like the eye of Sauron almost, although more pinpointed. Oh, that's so cool. Again, I love that plume interaction between stage 1 and stage 2. It's like a smoke ring.
And I probably shouldn't do this, but I've currently updated my spreadsheet and I just realized this is the 140th Falcon 9 launch of the year. Isn't that crazy?
That is, wow.
140 launches already of Falcon 9.
That's unbelievable. And this is the view from Jerry Pike, who was our licensed drone operator down at the Cape. Oh, this is such a gorgeous view. I love the aerial perspective of it. Again, licensed drone operator, you can see well outside of the no drone zones that are located and all of the temporary flight restrictions, following all legal guidelines. I always just like to clarify that because a lot of times we get people saying, are you allowed to have a drone there? There are certain spots where it is legal, certain spots where it is not. We make sure we are doing everything legally by the book.
You can see on the right-hand side there on the map how the next orbit, the white line, is lower, and that's what the second stage will do. Wow, look at that.
This is so cool from the drone, I gotta say.
Yeah. That perspective of like seeing everything and then the rocket lifting off like from the air, right? Giving you that perspective.
Oh, yeah. Punching through a cloud there. Just spectacular. And again, super bright tonight. And that's with a surprisingly cool night, too. Sometimes it seems like once you get that cooler, crisp air as we start to get into fall and winter and that time of year, things absolutely start to get more sharp and crisp and bright. And this is of the landing from one of our Cape cams as well. Going right behind the hill there over by Jetty Park. You still kind of see that glow there. This from our other camera at the port there. From one of our fleet cams. This from the other fleet cam. Right behind the industrial parts of the port there. And here's the drone view. Oh, that... Talk about lighting up the night. Absolutely spectacular.
Just realized that this was a 131 landing burn too. So
Oh,
they
it
did
was?
not only they did the entry burn as 131, but also the landing. I noticed because I saw the glow, like the glow gets bigger, right? So I saw on some of these views, the glow just gets bigger. I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and actually the brightness looks identical as well from this streak shot from Julia Bergeron out there as well. I love that. You can even see the boost back at the top, of course, the entry burns and then the landing burn there. Absolutely beautiful shot from Julia. Oh, it looked like such a gorgeous night out there. And that is spectacular. Shout out to the team as always, rolling out there, doing amazing work. Julie Bergeron with the photos there. Of course, Jerry with the drone. Our team in the back operating the Cape cams with Gage and Daniel working on those. And then, of course, DY is also out there with the tracking and getting that gorgeous sound, too. Oh, I love it. I love it. Let's see. Someone asking, why don't they show the second stage views on military missions? I think the best way to put it is they say at the request of the customer, typically, right?
Yeah, the live stream is just a nice thing to have for them, right, to the public, but it's the customer that calls the shots. They are the ones paying for the mission, and therefore they are the ones that dictate what can be seen and what cannot be seen. Sometimes they might not just be a military launch, but it might be just a commercial customer that doesn't want to see their satellites. Amazon. Cool. I think I got something there. Oof.
Yeah, Kuiper satellites, we typically don't see them on their deployment, which, ironic that this booster has now flown 3 flights, of which all of them at the request of the customer, we have not seen the first payloads deploy, because this flew Kuiper 2, Kuiper 3, and now this mission Bandwagon-4. That is quite ironic. And this one eventually will fly as a Falcon Heavy center core. We do, of course, have the slow motion replay in the works right now. Here's a little teaser for you from DY's out in the field, just of what we might be able to expect as we see this still shot here. Again, that's more like the Eye of Sauron, really. There, you could see the the 2 dots there. The top right of the circle is one stage, and dead in the center is the other. I love the colors too. Again, that higher up part with less oxygen up there, you get more of that blue color as well. So you get that really nice mix of the oranges and the blues. Absolutely spectacular. While we were talking about that stage, by the way, that booster, knowing that it will become eventually a Falcon Heavy center core, could they potentially then reconvert it back to a single stick configuration? And I think it's worth noting that this is the first time they have ever launched a center core as a Falcon 9 to begin with. So do you think they would maybe reconvert it back after?
Yeah, if it's a reusable Falcon Heavy mission, right, where they land the center core and things like that, then sure. I mean, I don't see why not, right? Might be a lot better if they were to reuse that on a center core, like actually as a center core on another Falcon Heavy, right? Like it launches on a reusable Falcon Heavy, it lands, right? And then it gets reused on another Falcon Heavy mission where it's also a Falcon Heavy center core. Maybe it gets expanded on a second one, or it maybe gets reused as well. We don't know, right? But by all means, sure, it might be able to I mean, from a physical standpoint of whether they can or not, it's just a matter of changing the interstage to a Falcon Heavy one or Falcon 9, depending on which one they go. And then there's like additional hardware that they need on the Octaweb, but that's something that they can bolt on or remove if they wanted to.
Yeah, it's also worth noting the fact that they have yet to bring a Falcon Heavy center core back into port successfully. They tried a landing that didn't quite work. Then they got one landed, but tipped over at sea. And after that, they're like, you know what? How does an expendable center core sound?
Yeah, they had 3 landing attempts. The one, of course, on Falcon Heavy demo, right? Where it ran out of TTIP, the fluid that they used to start up the engine. Then the second one, it landed, but the Octograbber, the robot that is used to be able to hold onto the Octaweb, it was not fitted with the correct sort of fittings, if you will, to be able to hold onto center cores. Because the center cores at the bottom, instead of having 4 hold downs, right? Because you've got attachments to the side boosters, but you cannot have a hold down there where the boosters are because the boosters are in the way. So it's got instead 2 hold downs and then 2 connectors to the side boosters. So the the Octograbber needs to be able to hold onto, so it holds onto the hold down clamps, where the hold down clamps will hold, but there's only 2 of them. So the other 2 arms of the Octograbber also need to be modified to be able to, hold onto the other sort of attachments for the second for the side boosters. So either way, the problem is they didn't have those modifications in place at the time, and so they lost the booster because the seas were rough, and so the booster tipped over. The third attempt, they were like, let's try just a really spicy landing, and it was very spicy, but it failed.
Yeah, it definitely spicy is a good way to put it. But eventually, maybe we'll see it. We'll have to see. And of course, that one being a landing. Also, hopefully next year we see a catch at Kennedy Space Center, and we see hopefully a Starship catch at some point soon, and Starship from Florida very soon as well.
Yep. In a few days, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the launch mount for the Starship 39A pad rolling out to that pad. And I'm sure we'll try to spool up some feeds and have a live stream for that. We'll be sure to definitely keep an eye on that.
Wait, us following Starship progress here at NASAspaceflight.com and NSF? Never. No. Oh, boy. But yes, of course, you can stay tuned. If you're not subscribed already, make sure you do. You'll get notifications if you hit the little bell for when we do go live for all of these launches, and when we do go live, I'm sure we will, for some activity for Starship at the Cape.
And that is very important, folks, because look, sometimes these rollouts, we expect that the rollout of the OLM, of the launch mount, will take many hours, right? Because it's a long way to go from Roberts Road to 39A. And so maybe it's in the middle of the night. We don't know, right? Like, it might be in the middle of the night. And so if that happens, then it's probably going to be a very quick time between creating the stream and going live. It's probably going to be very rushed in that sense. And we did that, right? For other live streams, like at Starbase, it also was in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at least Starbase, we have road closures. Here at Kennedy Space Center, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, they don't post road closures because all of those happen inside gated areas that are part of federal land. So they don't have to warn the general public because there is no general public nearby. So it's all going off of what we were able to see with all of our cameras and our people. And yeah, so it could be coming up very soon. You'll, of course, have to stay tuned. We will also post it on all the socials whenever that does happen, too, so you can join us live for it, because I am so excited to finally see more Starship hardware at the Cape. I mean, I think it was there, oh gosh, almost a year ago when there was parts of the towers that were being shipped over to Starbase from here for the Starship Tower, and those pieces were massive. I'm like, I can only imagine how big the OLM is going to be.
It's almost going to be 3 years now. It was beginning of 2023.
Was it that long?
Yep.
Oh my God.
Some of those segments actually rolled out before 2023 began. In late 2022, the Starship Tower at 39A was built over the summer of 2022, and the one at Starbase was over the summer of 2021. Spring-summer, spring-summer, but yeah.
Which, fun fact also, we came up on the anniversary this past day, technically still for the second, or the first, was the anniversary of the Cape Vandenberg launch, aka USSF 44, the Falcon Heavy mission that nobody saw. It was so secretive that we didn't even get to see it launch because of the fog.
Yeah, that was quite a... Well, we didn't see it, but at least we heard it.
I mean, I saw it for about 10 seconds or 5 seconds that whole day, and yes, it was quite the sound. Speaking of sound, I see where you're going with this, Alex. I believe we have some landing audio for you folks.
There we go.
Do we have the sonic booms in there? Oh, there we go. I think we're
Oh.
rewinding a bit to get them. Don't tell me I talked over them again. Carson, help me out here.
Yeah, we were not prepared for that. I mean, that's also the problem that happened during the live stream, right? Where
Yep.
during the live portion, that it's like you really don't know when the sonic boom will hit. When you are there, imagine when it's from remote. I'm at home here in Europe, in Spain, right? Like I have no idea. Oh, hang on, he's playing it again. Carson, let's see. We'll let him play that. Roll it.
You know, the second I start talking.
Of course, when we shut up, now he's not playing it. There we go.
And that's the VAB squeal, the little tweet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there you go.
because the sonic boom is so short, right? That it's more like pew pew. When it is the rumble of the engine, it's like pew, because it's like, you know, that rumble is continuous. It's not a boom, right? It's not a. It's sort of the difference between like a step function as opposed to just like a little curve.
And I see someone actually saying, I heard it. Someone else saying, I can hear the squeal. Finally. Yes, we are converting people to the VAB squeal. It is real, folks. It is not fake. It is not something hiding at Area 51. It is not something that was launched on USS 44 in the fog of Cape Canaveral of Kennedy Space Center. It is actually there. It is real. Also real is that we have our slow-mo replay coming in from DWise, who is out in the field, which D, thank you for rolling out this evening and providing some fantastic views for us. We appreciate it from you. We also appreciate it from Jerry Pike bringing out the drone views as well. Hey, look at this.
Finally.
Now we're getting views from Falcon 9 this whole time as we start to wrap up.
Yeah. That venting is because they're preparing for the relight of the second stage.
Yeah, of course. And now we see the payloads. Look at that. And we know it is not a stubby nozzle officially now. Oh boy. I guess we might as well stick around for second engine start 2 at this point. Get ready, because it is a long burn, a whole whopping 1 second.
Yeah. I wouldn't blink. Like, just saying, don't blink.
Don't even blink. Blink and you're dead.
Yeah. But yeah, that venting is totally normal. It's part of the chill down of that engine ahead of the relight. You know, the thing that we talked about like 44 minutes ago, right? At T minus 7 minutes. So yeah.
That.
Yep. And that is just basically solid oxygen.
Yep. So we should be seeing that any second now. And
Watch for the eyes.
And shut down.
Ooh, there we go. There you go.
that is the greatest call out of all time. Back ignition and shutdown. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Nominal orbit insertion as well. So that was nice.
One more to go still. Of course, you can keep an eye out on the socials for when all of those do deploy. Alex, thank you for joining me as well.
It's been a pleasure as usual, of course. You know, it's always funny to see these kind of missions and whatnot. But yeah, we have a few Starlink launches, but also we have an Atlas soon. So, you know, stay tuned for all of those different launches out of the Cape.
And a new Glenn.
And a new Glenn, yeah.
Yes. Carson's the one pushing the buttons, pulling the levers tonight. Thank you, Carson, for operating. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I have been your host for this evening/morning's Bandwagon-4 mission. If you're in North America, don't forget, time to set your clocks back in the East Coast in 11 minutes. But let's set the clocks back to liftoff and enjoy the DWise slow-mo replays. Have a good one, everybody.
And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, Atlantic.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside STD off. Say again, STD off. Off. It's orange!
R45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Décollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting the flare, correct?